Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, and it is May 30th, I believe. 2023. Here we go once again. And why am I not seeing? I think he's got, there we go. Rusty, the other day when he was up here, he's up here again, by the way. He's trying to act like all loving right now, laying down right next to the computer here. But it's only going to be a matter of time until he's on top of it, until he hits all these buttons, and then who knows what's going to happen next. Good morning, Tommy. Good morning, Jackie. Good morning, Miss Kathy. How are we doing this fine morning? Did you have a good day yesterday? We took a drive out to look for the buffaloes, or some might say bison. In any case, we didn't find, well, we found them, but they're way off in the distance. So we gave up and we went to Goldie's. And we had a great big old tenderloin and some ice cream. So that was a good consolation prize. We did see them off into the distance, but sometimes they'll be right up by the road, but they weren't yesterday. But that's okay. It looked like they were getting along, so that's always the key. We don't want to have any buffalo fights going on in the prairie. Drove back from my mom 7 hours. Ouch. But a beautiful day. That's always cool. Good morning, Miss Kelly. How are you doing this fine morning? If only you could see Rusty laying here. Oh, boy. It's only going to be a matter of time. It's like a ticking time bomb. All right, let's go ahead and get to the message for today. God has blessed us with a new day. Take a few moments and pause, thanking Him for the beauty of this day designed for us to do His will. We can reach out and offer help to others and practice love and kindness in all that we do. We can reflect God's love and grace in all our actions, letting His love radiate from us in our smile and the reflection of God's light from our eyes. Each day we have many opportunities to be great through simple acts of kindness. Never underestimate the power of touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, or an honest compliment. All these small actions given in love have the potential to turn other people's lives around. Each of us is loved. Because we are loved, no reason is needed for love. God is love, and He loves us beyond our imagination. We can each be filled with His love and grace, giving us the healing, strength, and guidance that are blessings we all need. Because our intentions are good and pure, we can do God's will, try to help others, encourage them with God's help to overcome their burdens. Let us walk with God, spending time talking with you for all our blessings of this new day. Take time to pray, for that is our foundation of our relationship with God. Our approach to this relationship is established by our understanding to God. Then it says, bro. I don't think it means to say bro. It says, bro, you are honestly encountering God, listening to His words in His terms for our lives. In a relationship with God, we share all of our emotions and continue to ask for His guidance as we deal with the challenges of our lives. Gradually, we see the events of our lives through the wisdom and guidance of God in our spiritual relationship with Him. God's blessings on your day. Much love to each of you. Good morning, Bible Blues Brother Scott. How are you doing this fine morning? All right, there's your message for today. I don't know where to put my phone at because where I normally put my phone is right where Rusty is laying right now. So I will move it to the other side. Rusty does not need a phone, though he does look kind of cute right now, laying right next to the computer looking at me. Yeah, go ahead. He's yawning and stretching out. You just go ahead and you stay right there, buddy. You be a good boy. Is Marie here? Marie! We're at the Book of Amazing Stories. Let's see what amazing story we can find today. Today's story is the quadriplegic quadriplegic Ironman. Ricky was born with the worst kind of cerebral palsy. Doctor said he would be a vegetable for life and recommended that his parents institutionalize him. But his brothers, Rob and Russell, were defiant. We're going to bring our little brother home and treat him like a regular kid. Ricky's mom, Judy, refused to surrender to her baby's disability. She spent endless hours doing physical therapy with Ricky, painstakingly taught him the alphabet, and then got state laws changed so that he could attend public school. A special computer allowed him to communicate using head motions to select letters and spell out words. When he was 15 years old, Ricky asked his dad if he could compete in a race. His dad agreed, and he pushed his son in a jerry-rigged chair that now resides in the Massachusetts Sports Hall of Fame. After the race, Ricky tapped out a message. Today, I felt like I wasn't handicapped. That started an odyssey that has taken him around the world, averaging 50 races a year, including 34 Boston marathons and nearly 4,000-mile bike ride across America. But it was at the Ironman Triathlon in Kona, Hawaii, that a worldwide television audience witnessed Ricky's miracle. Only elite athletes are allowed to compete in this ultra triathlon of swimming, biking, and running. Ricky and his dad are the only tandem team ever allowed to compete. They came in close to last, but they were the big story in 1997. The world watched 59-year-old retired Air Force Colonel Dick Hoyt carry his mute, quadriplegic 27-year-old son into the Pacific. He swam 2.5 miles in open water, pulling Ricky in a rubber raft attached to his wetsuit. After that, he completed the grueling 112-mile bicycle course with Ricky strapped to a seat on his handlebars. Finally, he ran the 26.2-mile marathon while pushing Ricky in a race chair. I remember seeing this video. Oh, that's cool. I haven't. There have been few moments in sports as inspiring as when Team Hoyt crossed the finish line, Ricky's face grinning with unrestrained joy. Today, Rick Hoyt is a graduate of Boston University. With the help of his caregivers, he lives in an apartment where he develops computers to aid disabled people. Not long ago, he tapped out on his computer to a Boston Globe reporter. When I am running, my disabilities disappear. The reporter said to his dad, "But don't you do the running for your son?" Dick replied, "No, Rick runs the races. I just loan him my arms and legs." He added, "There's nothing in the world that we can't do together." The story of Team Hoyt should encourage us all. God has called us to run the race of life. Sometimes it seems beyond our abilities, but we have a Heavenly Father who says, "If you do the running, I will give you my arms and legs." There's nothing we can't do together. So keep on running, inspired by this truth. When our strength runs out, God's strength begins. It's just the onions so early in the morning. Are you guys feeling onions right now? Isn't that what you usually say? What an amazing story. Those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. It's a beautiful. Okay, so I need to make a note. How do I find this video? Kathy, if you want to share that video with me, and then if I can find a way to get access, I need to make a note of this because I it makes you a little emotional just thinking about it. I think for sure it would be solid onions all the way. Oh boy. But isn't that pretty cool? Because um God, if you were to interview, if they would interview God, wouldn't God say the same thing as his father said? No, he's doing the running. I'm just loaning him my arms and legs. That is so cool. And God would say the same thing. For those of us who put our faith and trust in God, he will guide us. He will lead us. He will give us the strength. He will give us the courage to press on when we feel like we can't go any further. He has gotten us to this point. He's not going to give up on us now. It's going to be we that give up on him because he's not giving up on us. He's not going to abandon us. It's tough. Wow. I I don't have the strength that his father has. That is incredible. All right. Like Jim Valvano would say, what would Jim Valvano say, Scott? There's nothing wrong with being driven to tears. We laugh, we think, we're driven to tears. Rusty, you're such a good boy. I shouldn't have pestered him. Usually I can get him to sit on the assistant's chair and he'll like lay here. Laugh, cry, and think deeply. There you go. Thank you, Scott. I knew it was something like that. That is another emotional thing you want to watch is Jim Valvano's speech at the ESPY Awards. That will give you some solid, that is some solid onions right there too. All right, let's get to today's reading. We're going to pick up an Old Testament reading. We're in 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 1. Wait, nope, take that back. We read that yesterday. Forgot to move my marker. Let's move ahead. We're in 2 Samuel. Because I just realized today's not the 29th. We read that yesterday. We need to go to the 30th, which is 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 23. Everyone cried loudly as the king and his followers passed by. They crossed the Kidron Valley and then went out toward the wilderness. Zadok and all the Levites also came along carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of God, and Abiathar offered sacrifices until everyone had passed out of the city. Then the king instructed Zadok to take the ark of God back into the city. If the Lord sees fit, David said, he will bring me back to see the ark and the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let him do what seems best to him. May his will be done, is essentially what he's saying. The king also told Zadok the priest, look, here is my plan. You and Abiathar should return quietly to the city with your son Ahimaaz and Abiathar's son Jonathan. I will stop at the shadows of the Jordan River and wait there for a report from you. So Zadok and Abiathar took the ark of God back to the city and stayed there. David walked up the road to Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered, and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the hill. When someone told David that his advisor at Hip-Hophel was now backing Absalom, David prayed, O Lord, let at Hip-Hophel give Absalom foolish advice. When David reached the summit of the Mount of Olives, where people worshipped God, Hushai the Archite was waiting there for him. Hushai had torn his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, if you go with me, you will only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I will now be your advisor, O king, just as I was your father's advisor in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter at Hip-Hophel's advice. Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, will be there. Tell them about the plans being made in the king's palace, and they will send their sons Ahimaaz and Jonathan to tell me what is going on. So David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom arrived. When David had gone a little beyond the summit of Mount of Olives, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, was waiting there for him. He had 2 donkeys loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 bunches of summer fruit, and a wineskin full of wine. What are these for? The king asked Ziba. Do you hear somebody? He's at alert. He heard some commotion going on upstairs. You can just lay down, Rusty. Ziba replied, the donkeys are for the king's people to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit are for the young men to eat. The wine is for those who become exhausted in the wilderness. And where is Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson? The king asked him. He stayed in Jerusalem, Ziba replied. He said, today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. In that case, the king told Ziba, I give you everything Mephibosheth owns. I bow before you, Ziba replied. May I always be pleasing to you, my lord the king. As King David came to Bahurim, a man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, son of Gera, from the same clan as Saul's family. He threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded him. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he shouted at David. The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you will taste some of your own medicine, for you are a murderer. Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded. Let me go over and cut off his head. No, the king said. Here's Rusty. Here comes Scotty. Hi. Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord has told him to curse me, who are you to stop him? Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wronged and bless me because of these curses today. So David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. The king and all who were with him grew weary along the way, so they rested when they reached the Jordan River. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the army of Israel arrived at Jerusalem, accompanied by Ahithophel. When David's friend Hushai the Archite arrived, he went immediately to see Absalom. Long live the king, he exclaimed. Long live the king. Is this the way you treat your friend David? Absalom asked him. Why aren't you with him? I'm here because I belong to the man who is chosen by the Lord and by all the men of Israel, Hushai replied. And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? Just as I was your father's advisor, now I will be your advisor. Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, what should I do next? Ahithophel told him, go and sleep with your father's concubines, for he has left them here to look after the palace. Then all of Israel will know that you have insulted your father beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will throw their support to you. So they set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone could see it, and Absalom went in and had sex with his father's concubines. Absalom followed Ahithophel's advice, just as David had done. And for every word Ahithophel spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of God. To be continued. We move on into New Testament reading. We're going to continue on in the book of John, John chapter 18, verse 25. Meanwhile, as Simon Peter was standing by, the fire warming himself, they asked him again, you're not one of his disciples, are you? He denied it, saying, no, I am not. But one of the household slaves of the high priest, a relative of a man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, didn't I see you out there in the olive grove with Jesus? Again, Peter denied it, and immediately a rooster crowed. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning. Then he was taken to the headquarters of the Roman governor. His accusers didn't go inside because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate the Passover. So Pilate the governor went out to them and asked, "What is your charge against this man? We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal," they retorted. "Then take him away and judge him by your own law," Pilate told them. "Only the Romans are permitted to execute someone," the Jewish leaders replied. This fulfilled Jesus' prediction about the way he would die. Then Pilate went back into his headquarters and called for Jesus to be brought to him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked him. Jesus replied, "Is this your own question, or did others tell you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate retorted. "Your own people and their leading priests brought you to me for trial. Why? What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is not of this world." Pilate said, "So you are a king?" Jesus responded, "You say I am a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth recognize that what I say is true." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. Then he went out again to the people and told them, "He is not guilty of any crime, but you have a custom of asking me to release one prisoner each year at Passover. Would you like me to release this king of the Jews?" But they shouted back, "No, not this man. We want Barabbas." Barabbas was a revolutionary. Then Pilate had Jesus flogged with a lead tipped whip. The soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put a purple robe on him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they mocked as they slapped him across the face. Pilate went outside again and said to the people, "I am going to bring him out to you now, but understand clearly that I find him not guilty." Then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said, "Look, here is the man." When they saw him, the leading priests and temple guards began shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" "Take him yourselves and crucify him," Pilate said. "I find him not guilty." The Jewish leaders replied, "By our law, he ought to die because he called himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was more frightened than ever. He took Jesus back into the headquarters again and asked him, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. "Why don't you talk to me?" Pilate demanded. "Don't you realize that I have the power to release you or crucify you?" Then Jesus said, "You would have no power over me at all unless it were given to you from above. So the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." Then Pilate tried to release him, but the Jewish leaders shouted, "If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who declares himself a king is a rebel against Caesar." When they said this, Pilate brought Jesus out to them again. Then Pilate sat down on the judgment seat on the platform that is called the stone pavement in Hebrew, Gabbatha. It was now about noon on the day of preparation for the Passover. And Pilate said to the people, "Look, here is your king." "Away with him," they yelled. "Away with him. Crucify him." "What? Crucify your king? Pilate asked. We have no king but Caesar, the leading priest shouted back. Then Pilate turned Jesus over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus away. Carrying the cross by himself, he went to the place called Place of the Skull, in Hebrew, Golgotha. There they nailed him to the cross. 2 others were crucified with him, one on either side, with Jesus between them. And Pilate posted a sign on the cross that read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. The place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, so that many people could read it. Then the leading priests objected and said to Pilate, change it from King of the Jews to he said, I am the King of the Jews. Pilate replied, no, what I have written, I have written. Psalm 119, verse 113. I hate those with divided loyalties, but I love your instructions. You are my refuge and my shield. Your word is my source of hope. Get out of my life, you evil-minded people, for I intend to obey the commands of my God. Lord, sustain me as you promise, that I may live. Do not let my hope be crushed. Sustain me, and I will be rescued. Then I will meditate continually on your decrees. But you have rejected all who stray from your decrees. They are only fooling themselves. You skim off the wicked of the earth like scum. No wonder I loved to obey your laws. I tremble in fear of you. I stand in awe of your regulations. Don't leave me to the mercy of my enemies, for I have done what is just and right. Please guarantee a blessing for me. Don't let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes strain to see your rescue, to see the truth of your promise fulfilled. I am your servant. Deal with me in unfailing love and teach me your decrees. Give discernment to me, your servant. Then I will understand your laws. Lord, it is time for you to act, for these evil people have violated your instructions. Boy, isn't that very timely right now? How many of us find ourselves saying this very thing? Lord, it is time for you to act, for these evil people have violated your instructions. Truly, I love your commands more than gold, even the finest gold. Each of your commandments is right. That is why I hate every false way. Proverbs 16, verses 10 and 11. The king speaks with divine wisdom. He must never judge unfairly. The Lord demands accurate scales and balances. He sets the standards for fairness. And that brings us to the end of our reading for today. And I think we can go back and pick up another story. Let's go ahead and do that because we haven't seen 745 roll over yet. Let's see here. We read that one. Here we go. This is the one we haven't read. You get an extra story today. The warrior saint Henry V had invaded France in a dispute over who should rightfully wear its crown. The English won, and a treaty gave their monarch the French throne upon the death of its old king. When both kings died at about the same time, the treaty was null and void. So the war was on again. It was during this endless slaughter that a teenage girl began to hear voices and see visions. The pious revered her as a prophetess. Cynics dismissed her as a lunatic, and priests whispered that she was a witch. But the maiden, but the maiden was sure that God had called her to go as a messenger to Charles, the French crown prince, with a simple prophecy: God will give you the throne, and I am to lead your armies to victory. In a scenario that seemed to have been scripted in heaven, the teen prophetess, I have a hard time saying that word, arrived at the royal city. But the prince was a cautious man, skeptical of audible voices from God. So he dressed as a commoner to test her. When she picked him out of a crowd and then recited the exact words of a prayer he had uttered in private, he was convinced that she was indeed heaven sent. He turned his armies over to this medieval maiden on a mission from God. What happened next is the stuff of legend. A village maiden in men's armor led French royal knights and hardened foot soldiers to stunning victories. The English were sure that she was a sorceress. When she was left for dead outside an English fortress, the British held a trial to prove that she was a witch. In one of the great scandals of church history, a jury of collaborating French clerics was assembled. Some 70 charges were brought, but the unschooled girl made such fool out of these churchmen that the trial was moved to private chambers. In spite of the worst kind of threats, she refused to repudiate her visions or voices. So on May 30th, today's May 30th, but except it was 1431, on this day back in 1431, Joan of Arc was burned at the stake before 10,000 witnesses. Joan of Arc. Most folks believe that she was officially condemned as a witch. The truth is more shocking. In desperation, that kangaroo court came up with the only charge that would stick. She had cut her hair and wore men's armor in violation of the Old Testament warning that a woman who dresses like a man is detestable to God. In our age, executing a girl for cutting her hair short or wearing pants seems so medieval. Yet in some ways, little has changed in 600 years. When we can't defeat ideas, we figure out ways to attack people with charges that have nothing to do with the issues. But ridding ourselves of the purveyors of inconvenient truths won't make their notions go away. In 1920, the same church that had earlier burned Joan of Arc at the stake made her a saint. Be careful whom you burn at the stake in your mind or with your tongue. They just might be seen as saints by future generations. Before you write others off, wait a while. Time has a way of clarifying and humbling. Look, here he comes with the clouds of heaven, and everyone will see him, even those who pierced him. Revelation 1, verse 7. There you go. Another really good story today. A couple good ones out of the Book of Amazing Stories. And let's go ahead and get this day wrapped up with a prayer for this Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. Tomorrow is the last day of May. Can you believe it? Incredible. Jesus insisted that his kingdom wasn't an earthly one. The unseen is often confusing, as many Christians from a Muslim background can testify. In Muslim nations, people have dreamed of a man in white. But as one VOM worker explains, dreams and visions are simply the starting point. There must be follow-up by a Christian and a proclamation of the gospel. Lord, thank you for reaching out to those who need you in ways that confound and confront. Give courage to my persecuted Christian family so they can follow up with boldness, faithfulness, and confidence. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Sentence that kind of grabs me is, the unseen is often confusing. It is confusing for the one who does not embrace and accept. And at least what I can do is I can speak for myself and saying, one time it was rather confusing. And do I see it now? No, I don't see it. But I feel it. It's unseen. The unseen will one day be seen, and what we see will one day be unseen. It's a shift from one place to the next. Just because we can't see it doesn't make it not possible, not real. And yet it gets hard to explain this to someone who once was like me and does not believe. Well, I, I'm not going to say I just wasn't a good follower. I can't say I wasn't a full, because I had a feeling, but it just, I wasn't a good follower. I wasn't spending time in his word. Didn't mean I was a bad person. I was a good person. There's a lot of good people out there. But are you following God's word? Are you seeking for his will to be done in your life? That's, I guess, what I'm speaking to. Because it's not like I was out there being a great criminal and breaking all sorts of laws, and all of a sudden I found God, and all of a sudden I was doing everything right. And the truth is that I still don't do everything right, even as a follower of God. We still at times find ourselves saying things we shouldn't say, doing things that we shouldn't do, judging. That last story we read, kind of, the whole idea of judging. And can we be wrong at times? Yes, we can. And that's why what we must do is put our faith and trust in the fact that God is the judge, and he is a very righteous judge. He will judge correctly. He will judge fairly. He's all about, what did it say? It said, the Lord demands accurate scales and balances. He sets the standards for fairness. He sets the standards for fairness. We do not. We seek him. He will ultimately judge fairly. What we must do is focus on our walk, focus on our relationship with the Father, and then seek to bring others to him. We we don't have to do all the hard work. All we have to do is what we're called to do. The Father will do the hard work. We just do what he calls us to do. And then we look forward to what lies ahead. For what we can't see right now will one day be seen, and what we see right now will one day not be seen. Just because we can't see it doesn't make it untrue. What we do is we put our faith and trust in what we can't see and who we can't see, knowing that at one point, at the end of our race here, we will transition over to what we can't see, which will be simply amazing. It will be words that we can't put. It will be perfect. And so until that point, let us continue to walk with him, keep our focus on him, lean on him, seek to do his will. Take care. God bless. Have a wonderful day. And God willing, we'll be back with you again come tomorrow morning. Until then.